Well, I thought we'd talk about some common things that we see at the seminar. We just had a seminar this past weekend, and it is amazing to me that every time we have a seminar, we see the same mistakes over and over and over, despite the fact that we have made video after video and article after article and changed the books and put pictures in the book and illustrated all of this shit. And nonetheless, people show up who have paid almost $1,000 to be at the seminar and show us exactly the same problems with their version of our technique every single time, right? And I just think it's interesting that the same things happen over and over and over. Now, let me preface this by saying that just because the general public comes in and wants to have their back angle too vertical to properly execute the hip drive version of the squat that we teach, that doesn't mean that the hip drive version that we teach of the squat is wrong. No, that doesn't mean that it's wrong. It means that it's unfamiliar to most people. And by far, this is the biggest source of correction that we have to do in the squat. It's virtually 80% of the people that show up at the seminar are going to try to front squat their squats. And in the power clean, for example, arm pulls are, not as universal as the back angle, because if a person comes to the seminar and has been doing power cleans, they've encountered some instruction. They've looked more carefully at things, and they at least most of them are conscious of the arm pull thing. And in fact, I've been meaning to say something about this. I think we're getting better at teaching straight arms, because there was only 2 people in this seminar this past weekend that had an arm pull that I had to correct.
Yep.
2 out of 30, which is good. That's the best it's ever been.
Yep.
I think we're getting better at teaching straight arms and the pull.
Right.
And, the physics of that is quite obvious. The boys out in California want to call it a hip clean when they just don't know how to coach a straight elbow and a pull. But if it's okay to have a power leak, then it just absolves the coaching staff of one more pesky thing to have to address.
Sure.
But an arm pull is a demonstrably ineffective way to transmit force from your back down to the bar.
Yep.
And we have to correct that over and over again. What else do we see all the time?
Those are the big ones.
Those are the big 2. Presses are sometimes difficult for people to understand. Our little hip movement thing that we introduce into the press,
right,
that makes it more efficient in terms of lifting heavier weight without having to resort to a push press.
Right.
Bench press, there's not a lot of problems on the bench press.
Nope.
The deadlift, everybody pretty much. This is probably the second most important thing we see, is people trying to deadlift with their hips in a position that is too low. Because of it's not particularly apparent what the mechanical model of pulling a barbell off the floor is. You got enough big guys deadlifting over 800 pounds yell at you, "Just pick it up off the floor." Can you hear that? "Just pick it up off the floor." Well, it's not. No, I'm sorry. It's not. It's not. The deadlift is not amenable to Macho Man Randy Savage coaching you to Just pick it up off the floor. There's a little more to it than that. And we study it, and we demonstrate to everybody in the video presentation on Saturday afternoon that there's more to it than that. And once you just look at it for more than about 3 minutes, you see that there's more to it than that. And there's an efficient way to pick it up off the floor, and then there is an inefficient way to pick it up off the floor. The confounding variable here is that very, very strong guys can do it wrong and still lift very heavy weights. And people misunderstand the fact that strong guys can do it wrong for the fact that the wrong way is still wrong. Right?
Right.
This is it's unfortunate that things are this complicated. But
I don't see the deadlift as a similar problem problem to what you have on the clean and the squat. And I think the reason we don't see nearly as many problems on the bench, the press, and the deadlift is because the average person walking into the gym doesn't have a conflicting ingrained movement pattern. There's no frame of reference, so they're learning a new thing, and it's a new thing, right? So the thing we always talk about, where it's easier to teach somebody who has no experience than somebody who has lots of experience, and that applies to everything, whether it's lifting, a sport, shooting, fighting, anything that involves movement. If you've got an ingrained movement pattern, it's always more difficult to work against an ingrained movement pattern than to teach a new one.